a treat anytime I get to see you and engage with the community, so thank you so much. So just to introduce myself, my name is Kanika. I live in Ottawa, and I am today a full-time practicing artist. I did not do art at all before my brain injury, which I got about 7.5 years ago. And today I will share with you a little bit of my story of what led me to art and essentially what I have learned through living with the effects of a concussion and how that has shaped and changed the person who I am today. So, you know, it's obvious to everyone the moment you have a brain injury, your life changes. And it changes in a pretty drastic way. And so the two single greatest questions that I get whenever I interact with anyone and they find out that I had a brain injury or I got a serious concussion, the first one was, what happened? And the second question is, when do you think you'll get back to normal? I'm intentional about not answering the first question because I've come to appreciate that there's probably a million different ways of hitting your head. It doesn't really matter, in my opinion, how you got the brain injury, because I can tell you I've had so many experiences where I could have had brain injuries and I didn't, like walking into a glass door or slipping down the stairs or riding my bike and falling off of it. Like, I've done a lot of things that cause brain injuries for people, and that those didn't cause my brain injury. So it just doesn't really matter what happened. And I find focusing on what happened brings us back in the space where we focus on what could I have done to have avoided this? And a lot of blame goes there. And I just don't think that's very constructive. And so I choose not to answer that question. And I tell people, you should rather be asking me, how do I feel today? Because that's what matters more. And then, you know, the second part of that question is, okay, so when will you get back to normal? When do you think you will feel better? And I spent a very long time, I can't tell you how long, years, trying to figure out what that meant for me. So I'm going to share my story with you through some pictures that I drew, and we'll go from there. So here, oops, there we go. All right. So here, oops, am I able to, sorry, we're just having some minor technical difficulties. I'm trying to, okay, there we go, perfect. Okay, so this is a picture that I drew of myself maybe 2 weeks after my brain injury. And this is what I call a self-portrait. So this is exactly how I felt. It was just, I did not feel like I was myself. I was not a happy person. I did not understand anything that was going on in my mind. And this is essentially how I felt. And I think this is a feeling that a lot of people can relate to. So I did what everyone else would do in this situation, is I want to get myself out of this. So it starts with a trip to the doctors. And this is a picture that I drew a little later on. And so to back it up a step, this picture is basically the first piece of art I ever created. Before this, I never did any type of art. Maybe a stick figure was the extent of my artistic abilities, but at the time I couldn't read. I really struggled. I couldn't use screens, and you know, there's a lot of things that I found very challenging and difficult to do. But somehow I was able, with a piece of paper and a marker, to do something. And so I started doodling. I started drawing with how I felt, and then over time those drawings started to evolve, but I'll give you a glimpse of some of them here. And so anyways, I spent hours in doctor wait rooms, speaking to people and telling them my story. And you'll see the person here is just writing it all out, explaining my symptoms, which led to me being poked and prodded quite a bit, and people trying to figure out, okay, what's going on. And then they would run a whole bunch of tests. And here I have a picture of a doctor who says, the brain is very complex. Let's investigate further, which is the story of me getting referred to another specialist because the tests didn't actually show anything. And as we all know, there's so much about the brain that doesn't show up in medical imaging and tests. And so the instinctive response is, let's test you further. But in reality, the doctor actually has no idea what's going on. So that's why the thought bubble is full of question marks. And so here I have a table of a ping pong table. And I feel like for a very long time, I played a game of doctor, specialist, therapist ping pong, where I would go from one specialist to another, try one alternative therapy, be it like acupuncture or physio, and then got my eyes tested, looked at the balance, you name it. I did everything. And why did I keep doing this? Because I kept trying to find an answer. I wanted to get myself better. I wanted to get myself to this place of who I was and all of the activities I used to do prior to my injury. But then it was like rinse and repeat. Every time you see someone, you go through the questionnaire, you get poked and prodded. And then it's just like, in reality, you still see people that have no idea what's going on and they might refer you to someone else. And it's just this never ending game. And then I'm not even going to get you started with the internet because so here I have a picture of a computer screen that says miracle cure. And I wrote, the internet is full of hope. And that's what it is, right? It's this downward endless spiral. And it was a blessing that I could not spend a lot of time on computers and screens because I didn't get caught in that, but they're like, you can go in there and get lost and actually not get anywhere. So after every appointment, after every treatment, every therapy session, I always ended up back to this first place of just feeling like this, just feeling completely, I guess, blah. Disappointed, upset, not seeing the results I wish I could see. In some cases, some of the treatments actually caused more pain, created more symptoms, and it was like this thing that just never ended. And the biggest thing was actually the disappointment, because every time I would physically put myself in an environment that was uncomfortable, I would have to get out of my house, do stuff that was not pleasant. And I did it with the expectation that this will help me get back to a place where I felt better. And it didn't. And so that disappointment in so many ways was so much more devastating and set me back every single time. And so here I have a slide with two pictures. One says it's me in a bed, and I'm imagining in my dreams, life will be so good the day I wake up to no headaches. And then it's a picture of me on the couch in my thought bubble saying, when I am fully recovered, I will get to do ... So I spent a lot of time in what I will call on hold, just waiting. It's like, okay, the day that every single day I woke up with headaches, and it was like, okay, the day that I don't wake up with headaches will be like that miracle, wonderful day. Or the day that I am fully recovered, that's the day I'll like travel the world. I'll get to do all of these dreams and all of these things that I'm not able to do right now. But what I realized, I didn't realize it at the time, was that I was actually holding myself back. Because I told myself that I wasn't worthy and deserving of living in the moment, in the present, until my symptoms went away. But that's not fair, because no one actually knows what it takes to get the symptoms to go away. And even if you live life with symptoms, you can still live a full and wonderful life. And I just didn't realize that there was still a lot of beauty and a lot of life still left to be lived. But I was just in bed and on the couch, just waiting and daydreaming and not really living. And this is in reality what would happen. So this is a sketch that I drew probably after I came home from a medical appointment. And it's just me just curled up on my couch in a hoodie. So that thing around my head is just the capuchon from the hood. And it's just, I'm just utterly devastated and sad. And so I just placed so much hope and expectations on that day, and that day just never came. And this is how I ended up feeling every single time. And then I basically reached a crossroads. And so here I have two signs, and it's like, imagine if you're on the road and there's like two signs that take you in two directions. So one sign has an arrow pointing towards the left that says continue exploring alternative treatments, which is also chasing hope. And then on the other side, in the other direction, is an arrow that says live your life. And I had to make a choice. Do I continue chasing hope, continue going through this cycle of waiting for answers, trying really hard to put all of my energy into getting to that place where I just fully cure myself of all of my symptoms, or do I live my life? And I was tired of feeling like this. I was just completely exhausted and tired of feeling like this. So I made a very conscious decision to essentially fire all of my doctors, and I decided I'm not going to do another treatment, another alternative therapy. I'm not going to see these specialists that actually have no idea what they're talking about. And I'm just going to figure out what can I do now, because I was done. I was completely done with all of that. And so the choice that I made was very clear. I was going to choose to live my life. And so after I reached that point, I found myself stuck in this crevice. So imagine a space between, I guess, two cliffs or whatever, a little gap. And on one side is what I called my old life, pre-injury. So it's everything that I had known up until that point. But I decided that a lot of that had to be left behind because I just didn't know what it was going to take to get me to that place. But then my life post-recovery was a mystery. It was a huge question mark. And so here I am stuck. Thankfully, I'm on a boat. I'm not like drowning. And it's because I was still very well supported and my basic needs were taken care of. And I'm grateful for that. But I felt like I was stuck in between two worlds because the future, I had no idea what it was going to look like. I had no idea what it would take to get me there. Like, I had to abandon my work and what I used to do. A lot of my interests had changed. My social networks, I was in that stage of life when, people get married and they buy their first home and all of those things. And so I felt like my entire social world, their life kept moving forward. And I had no vision of what my future would look like. And so that was a very scary place to be in, where I felt like I just didn't know how to get out of where I was. And so I drew another picture which kind of symbolizes that, and it's just a little stick figure person of me that's just stuck in the forest. And the city is like kind of in a distance, and I don't really know what direction to go in. There's no path that's carved ahead, because that, we all have our life goals and all of these things of what we think our life is going to look like. So when that basically, when my past hopes and dreams of the future have been taken away, I have no idea what my new future could look like. And so it's a terrifying feeling to feel like you don't know where you're going and you feel lost. And so that was me once I made that conscious decision to know that my future was going to look a little different than my past, but I just didn't know what that was going to look like. But then that's when art came into my life, and it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so I had so much fun drawing these little stick figure pictures, and it was something that my symptoms could tolerate. So then I just continued doing more art, and then I started to paint, and then got messy with so this is a self-portrait of me as an artist. And you see me with the little beret and on the easel. And to me, it was such a beautiful, liberating experience to paint and to create and to express. And I think it worked so well for me for two reasons. The first was I never actually did any art before. So I had no idea what, I guess, what good art was, what my standards would be. And so I didn't have anything to compare myself against, right? It's not like, and I'll give you the example, I used to cook a lot. And before, I would make these huge elaborate meals and like these salads with 20 different ingredients. However, post-injury, I found it very difficult to get into the kitchen. And so, someone told me, they're like, why don't you try making a salad with 2 ingredients? But to me, I had such a high standard for what a salad needed to look like. Going down to 2 ingredients felt like it was a resignation in many ways. Whereas art and painting is something I'd never done before. So anything that I did was beautiful and new and wonderful. And my standards were a lot more realistic. And there's something I'm convinced about creativity, of what it does to your brain. Like when I first started to paint, I really struggled with reading, yet I could paint, I could create and express myself. And there's something wonderful about that. And it just uses a completely different part of the brain. And so I'm a huge advocate of everyone to find a creative outlet, whatever that might be for them. And to me, it was the visual arts. And so from that, I just want to share with you a picture. This is a picture of my brain. So if my brain were a piece of art, this is what it would look like. And essentially you'll see it's a very colorful thing. And I highlighted all the different lobes and parts of the brains in different colors. And I intentionally chose to make it very bright and vibrant, because I feel all of us have beautiful, wonderful brains. And even though at times it might have felt broken, it was still full of life. And so there's all these squiggly lines that show all the neurons and the connections. And then what I had done, and I'm not sure if you can see them, is I drew very faintly these little images to depict, to be honest about some of the challenges that I'm facing in my present day. So by the ear, where the auditory sensors are, you'll see that there's this person covering his ears, and then all these sounds around him, because it's really tough to tolerate sounds. And then there's another person with like what I call a hammer that's kind of going on their head because of all the headaches. And so, I think it's important to honor what you're dealing with. And to me, I can't deny that these symptoms existed. So I really wanted to put them on the piece. And then there's a lot of these invisible clear spots on it to really show a lot of the invisible stuff with life with a brain injury that's not seen, but still exists. And I wanted to find a way to put that in there and to honor it. So this brain was created part of a fundraiser for Baycrest Hospital and was auctioned off to raise funds for Alzheimer's research. And I basically proposed to them I wanted to do my brain. And this is what my brain would look like as a beautiful piece of art. It was on display at Union Station, like thousands of people got to see it. And I can't tell you what an honor it was, just to, not even just to showcase my brain, but just to showcase what a brain that's concussed and a brain that has lived through a brain injury, to showcase it as a piece of art for others to see and admire. I think there's something really special about that. And so from painting, I started with, and all throughout, I still continued doing illustrations because I just loved doing them, and it was a very easy thing for me to do. But then from painting, I got into clay. And this is just a little sketch of me just playing with clay. And this is a picture of me in one of the studios that I used to go to in Toronto when I was living there at the time. And you'll see me here wearing a hat and wearing tinted glasses. And that's what I call my outfit of every time I had to leave the house, because the fluorescent lights were really bright. But, I definitely decided to get a really cool looking hat. And I rocked the look because I realized I had so much fun working with clay, and I needed to use the studios. It's not like paintings where I couldn't do them at home, that it didn't matter how I looked. I needed to be 100% comfortable, because if I was 100% comfortable, then I could just focus on the clay, and that's really what mattered. So that's a picture of me at the studio, and then I'll show you some of the pieces which were actually on display at that show at the Clay and Glass Gallery. And to me, when I created this collection, which is called Rethink Recovery, it was a turning point for me in my personal recovery. And I think I did this at about the 3-year mark after my injury. So essentially I made this bowl and tried to make it as perfect as possible. And I remember when making it, I tried really hard to like smooth out the edges, and it clearly looks like it's a bowl. And then I broke it. So I smashed it. And when clay is fired, so when clay is wet, it's filled with water, but then you have to fire it in the oven, and then all of the water is removed from it, and then it becomes a solid form. And that's what's actually very beautiful and interesting about clay. So this one, after I had fully fired it and glazed it, I broke it. And to me, it was symbolic of essentially how I felt after my brain injury. I felt like my life was shattered in pieces. And it was an incredibly traumatic experience. And so I tried really hard to rearrange the pieces and put them back in the same way as they were before in this original bowl. But the thing is once it was broken, it changed form, right? There is no way that you can put these pieces to look smooth again. Like, there was going to be cracks. They're not going to hold together. And if I tried to put like water or something or soup in this bowl, it wouldn't hold it. So the function of the piece just entirely changed. And that was what I was trying to do with all those medical appointments and all of those therapies and all of that time waiting. It's like, okay, I'm going to do stuff so I can get myself back to looking the way I was before. And then it's impossible. And so what I did instead is I took those same pieces and chose to reassemble them. And I didn't know where I was going to go with this process. It was just a fun, creative process, and just had fun with them, and I put them in different arrangements until I reached on this piece, which I quite liked quite a bit. And so I put them together, and then I actually refired it so that the pieces would hold in one form. And as you'll see here, like, the edges are a little sharp, it's a little jaggedy, there's fractures, there's cracks. It's not smooth. It's not smooth at all like the first bowl. But in so many ways, this is what my life is like today. It's interesting. And I think it's beautiful. And what I realized through the exercise of doing this is those parts are still there. Those parts of me that were from the first piece that were broken, that I chose to reassemble in a different way, it's all me. It just looks a little different. And there's no way you can compare what the piece looked like before to what it looks like here, because you just can't compare it. And you can't, and when I see this piece, I can't help but spend hours staring at it and looking at it. And this is what happened whenever I exhibited this work too, is people were just captivated by this piece. Whereas, to be honest, something like this was just quite boring. And that's when I realized that living with a brain injury is actually a really beautiful thing. It's not tragic. It's not at all sad the way others may make you believe that there's something wrong with you. It's recognizing that it's okay to be different. And so my life changed the moment I did this. It was like my healing, my therapy. And after I created this collection, I honestly felt like I was recovered. So even though I continued to wake up with a headache every day, and I live with my symptoms, and I have to pace myself and wear my funky outfit every time I go out, I still feel like I'm recovered. Because to me, recovery meant to stop looking to put the pieces together, because I found a way to put my pieces together. And so, yeah, so that's my story of the ceramics. And then from there, essentially, I really decided to focus on my illustrations and work through them because I felt there was something really special about that. So, you know, I made reference to walking into a glass wall, and that was me before. But then those illustrations kind of came together. It took about 3 years to create what became a book called Brave, which I released a couple of months ago. It's the first ever illustrated book on the topic of brain injuries, actually, the first full-length published book on brain injuries. And I realized, having gone through my journey and what I had been through, that there's a lot of beauty to be had in the experience of the brain injury. And I think it's valuable to kind of change the way we think and look at what it means to have one. And so I created this character who's a superhero, and I call her the modern day superhero. So you'll see the cape is actually her scarf. And while she doesn't fly through burning buildings and save cats and stuff like that, she chooses to get up day after day and live her life, even though she has no idea what tomorrow looks like. And that's what it means to be brave, and to be a hero is to continue to move forward, even though you have all of the odds in the world are stacked up against you. And I just thought that it was important to create literature that really honored what that experience was like, and to put forward something positive so that other people can see that they're not alone. And so here, I'll share some pictures with you from the piece of the character who's inspired by my life story, but I'm hoping anyone who picks up the book can just see this person as their friend. And it's just a story of just, you know, having to sit still and spend a lot of time just like pretending and trying to hold it together, but you feel like a mess on the inside. You know, it's living with chronic fatigue is not fun, but what it means to be a hero is to find your pace. And so here, not that anyone goes to gyms anymore, and they will likely all go out of business, but pre-pandemic, this is what an outing to the gym may have looked like. You see all the macho people with their big weights, and they're just pushing themselves so hard, and none of them actually look like they're having fun. But here you see Brave, and she's got her tiny little dumbbells, but you know, she's rocking it. She's got her outfit and her sweatbands, and she's got the gold star, and she's a superstar. And she doesn't care that she needs to lift all the heavy weights. What she's doing is she's showing up, and she's trying, and she's adapting, and she's adjusting, and she doesn't apologize about it, and she doesn't feel ashamed or embarrassed, but rather finds a way to enjoy herself. And I'll tell you, amongst everyone else in the gym, this person's actually having the most amount of fun. And that's a pretty cool thing. And then so sensitivity to sounds is a really tough thing. And so, you know, I have noise canceling headphones, and it's just, before I used to be really embarrassed whenever I wore them outside, but now it's just like, you just gotta rock it and just own them and carry them. And so I created this persona where she's like this airline traffic controller, and she just looks so cool and hipster, and who wouldn't want headphones like that? So again, I wanted to create a character that has celebrated all of these things that might seem a little odd and unconventional, and no one else in her world does these things, but that doesn't matter. She knows what she needs, and she just owns it and celebrates it. And then for coping with sensitivity to lights, this is like an MJ moment where it's just like, just be a rock star. Who cares? Like, you know, it's a cool, let people think that you're mysterious or that you're famous, and just, you know, wear them with confidence and pride, and don't apologize that you're the only one that is in the room wearing the sunglasses, if that's what you need to do. So the brain is really complex, right? Like billions of neurons. I don't know how many, but there's billions of neurons in your brain. Technology, like MRIs and stuff, they're not sophisticated enough to be able to see what's going on in there. And it's challenging. It's challenging to not know what's going on in your brain. It's like this huge mystery. And what that leaves us with is every day is a bit of a toss-up, right? So she's rolling this dice and you just don't know. Are you going to wake up being a good day? Is it going to be a bad day? Will it be a mystery? And, but you still choose to roll the dice, right? And that's what it means to live with a brain injury. And so I wanted to create a character who's a superhero because she still chooses to roll the dice, even though there is no certainty over what the day is going to look like. Whereas I think a lot of people, they like to be in full control of all of their variables, and they're only going to do things if they can predict certain outcomes. And it's like, no, we don't have that luxury, but that's okay as well. I think it's pretty amazing that with so many unknowns, we still choose to take chances and step outside of our comfort zone and do things. And that's, it takes a lot of courage to do that. And I think that needs to be celebrated and respected. So yeah, it's just a cute picture of with the headphones trying to block out all of the sounds around you. And you'll see, she's just so happy because she's found her bubble, whatever that bubble means to her. And then, it's at the end, it's just this constant journey of recognizing who you are and accepting you for who you are. And that's what I wanted to bring through this character, someone who's just so filled with hope in life, even though things don't quite make a lot of sense in her world. And so, yeah, life with a brain injury is like a balancing act, right? Once it's like walking on a tightrope for the first time every single day. It's about finding that balance, and it takes a lot of focus, and it's challenging. It's really, really tough to do that. But, she's got her gold star. She's trying. And that's what we all do every single day. And so, I have a choice. Do I want to feel like this, which is this place of being blah? Or do I want to feel like this, where it's like, she's got her cool hat, her shades, doing whatever she needs to do. And she's just like walking around like, no, but like, whatever, I got this. Either you're in or you're out. I don't care. I got this. And so that's, this is my story. This is the path that I chose. I would have never have expected to make art, to make this character whom even to this date, I must have seen this picture over 100 times, but every time I see it, it just brings the biggest smile to my face. And it reminds me of who I am and all of the wonderful things that I do in this world. And it all started because I gave something new a chance, and I was open to trying something new. And I feel like the luckiest person in the world right now. And so, yeah, that's the story of how I kind of, through art, I came to myself. I came to appreciate the life of the brain injury. And, it doesn't mean it's all rosy. I still have my challenges, still wake up every single day with a headache. I still live with a lot of unknowns, but I don't let them hold me back. And I'm so much more mindful of listening to my body, of working with them, and still seeing that there's so much left for me to do in the world, and for me to bring of myself to the world. So yeah, this is me. These are pictures from the book that I created. And yeah, so thank you so much for letting me share my story. It's always a treat to be able to do that. And yeah, I'm going to stop talking now.
Well, thank you, Kanika. Is there any questions from, yeah, I've got one question here. How long into your brain injury did you decide to give up that formal therapy? So how many years had you tried to do the traditional things that everybody recommends, and then when you said that's enough?
For the first year, for sure. It was aggressive, and it was a lot. And then I kind of took a little bit of a break, and I just needed a break physically. My body needed that. So that's what I gave myself. And that's when art really came into my life. And that's when I had the space and the time to explore my painting. And I took my first pottery class, which was a daytime seniors class. And it was like a year after my injury, and I needed to do some type of activity to get myself out of the house. And I didn't know anything about pottery, but I chose that as a class because it was the only class available in the daytime, and it was only an hour long every day, and it was at the senior center. And I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure I could do this. And so I still think I had a few on and off therapy treatments, but everything kind of tapered down after that point. And I realized I had so much more fun doing art than doing those things that it just naturally replaced my time, my interest. And then I just kind of, the rest of the stuff just tapered out.
So what do you find the biggest challenge now for managing brain injury symptoms?
Well, so in many ways, I'm really lucky because I've been able to build a profession for myself that accommodates my needs. So here behind me, you'll see, this is my drawing table. And so I'm able to work from home. And it's a luxury and it's a privilege, but whenever I'm tired, I can go take a nap. I don't have any other noises to deal with. I can control the light. I work with the light. And so I think over the years, I've become really good at recognizing my symptoms and working with them and not being frustrated by the things that I'm not able to do. You know, I still get frustrated by ignorant people. I'm not going to lie. Like, you know, everyone's like, so when will you get back to normal? Or have you thought to consider this treatment? It's like when I released the book and the local newspaper wrote this wonderful story on me and encouraging people to come out to the launch, I had these people reach out of the blue and to tell me, oh, I can recommend you to this doctor or to this therapist. Maybe you should try this therapy. I wish you well. I hope you feel better soon. And I don't know, whenever I get those responses, they hurt me deeply inside because there's this failure to recognize that I'm wonderful as I am. And so while I've reached a place of total acceptance and I've learned to understand my limits and work within them and not get frustrated when I have to put those stops or exclude myself from certain environments, and I'm okay with that, it's other people who don't get that. And that's a big part of why I made this book, because I'm hoping for them to see that there are other storylines and there's other endings, other possible endings. And so, yeah, it definitely still, my husband will tell you, he's like, I will get very angry or frustrated when someone passes a comment. It's just like, did you not even hear what I'm saying? It's like they a complete failure or inability just to see me as I am and rather project onto me an image of what they wish they could see.
Right. Okay, any other comments or questions? Donna or Sarah, if you want to unmute yourself, ask them directly. Okay.
I guess, but what medium do you do everything in now? Is it still just drawing or have you branched out?
I'm constantly experimenting, and I think I do that because it just keeps it interesting. And so these days I've really gotten into watercolors. And my newest project actually has nothing to do with brain injury, but we started our first ever vegetable garden, and it's been quite an adventure. So I'm in the process of illustrating what that journey has been like, of everything that I'm learning and how I'm trying to fight the squirrels, which is a losing battle every single day. And so I'm doing watercolor with that. And yeah, it's whatever I feel inspired to do.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Kanika. I am going to stop the recording now.